Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today I get to hang out with my friend Chad Wooters, Woot Woot, on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's really awesome to be here.
Hey, it's good to have you, man. I think you're an extraordinary man, and we're going to dig into that today. So Chad is the founder and owner of Kairos Talks Inc. We're going to get into a little bit more about what that endeavor does. But I always ask people before I interview them, what's the one thing you'd want people to know to get a handle on you? And he said that his entire being is about helping people move to the next level. Um, and that has to do with moving people personally and professionally forward towards their goals or their dreams. And in a general sense, it's success, right? So you love moving people towards success. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it started back in when I was a kid, even. Became a Christian at the age of 16 through apologetics, and didn't realize that that's what we were doing. Actually, let's back up a little further. I opened my first company when I was 13 as a tutor. And so we actually, by 15, I had like six or seven tutors working for me through the company. But the whole goal of the company was Kairos Tutoring, big surprise, was to help folks, students, kids, move forward in their academic career. And then when I got saved a couple years later, leaning into that and launching apologetics classes and launching discipleship courses and helping people learn about the Bible. And in that area, when I didn't necessarily have, I had five jobs, but ministry wasn't one. It was all about helping those folks in the groups really get to the next part of their spiritual development. And then moving into professional, now what we do is through some combination of AI automation marketing, we're looking at companies' goals, their vision, sometimes helping them define what that even is, and then looking at how can we get them to that next spot. So it really does, translate into how can we help you find what's most important to you, and then get there. And if it's professionally, then there's a lot of things we can help out with. If it's personally, it's just a fun conversation because I believe so much in personal development. My wife is constantly laughing at the amount of books that we have that are about that subject matter and pursuing growth. So, yeah, I think that's a decent overview of kind of what it looks like for me across the years.
So good, man. I hear a couple things there. So to get people towards success, you first have to understand what success is to them or help them get clarity around success. So clarity sounds like it's a big part of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, my wife's my favorite person. She's also a great example for this. She has a business since we've had our first daughter. She stepped into being a parent full time, and for her, I was like, "Let me help you with AI automation marketing." And she's like, "No, I don't want to grow that aggressively. I don't want to do those types of things." But fast forward to where she's busy raising her daughter, and it's hard for her to find the time to respond to bridal inquiries that she gets for her business. Well, she only gets a couple every month, but looking at that, like she had to find what mattered to her in that moment, shift it, get clarity into what was working, what wasn't working, and that allowed us to build an automation that takes the most tedious, repetitive thing from her business and completely automates it with AI so that she no longer has to worry about it. Things are done automatically for her. And it took her getting clarity on what that looks like in her day-to-day life for her to even be open to that. It took me 3 years to convince her to get it. And now, every time it happens, it's like, hey, your thing went off and it worked. And I'm so glad I don't have to worry about this anymore. And that's just one small example of how this all works.
That's so good, man. And it's obvious you have a gift. You have a gift for that. I love when you can draw the thread back so far, right? So you're a 14-year-old kid starting a company, right?
Yeah,
And what does the company
I have a
do? It
problem.
moves people forward,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then by the age of 15, you've got six other tutors working for you. And what are you all doing together? You're moving people forward.
Mm.
Interesting to me that it was called Kairos before you were a Christian, right? Because Kairos is one of those Bible words. So what's the
Yeah.
story behind that?
So it was actually not called that until I was 16 when I started getting more. structured in my business. It was just Chad Wooters tutoring for those first 2 or 3 years. 15, 15 and a half, 16, I served with a nonprofit for children of the incarcerated. Children whose parents are in prison, not children who are in prison. It's a very big difference. I met a horse named Kairos, and that started that. So whenever I refer to the company, because it existed for so long and we did a lot of company things, it was always just that. I just didn't have the words, terminology, or faith yet that would help define what it would become.
And have you found that there's significance in the word? So the kairos is time, right? Like that's like appointed time in the scriptures.
Yes and no. Scripturally, it's used as you're talking about. It's typically used to describe God's timing.
Yes.
Culturally, with the Greek, back when the word was being used, was usually describing the moment in time in which an archer would release an arrow through a bow. So if you look at a bow from the Greek period, it would have a knot. The arrow will go through the bow shaft, not to the side like modern bows and arrows. So that moment in time where they release the arrow so that it would hit the target is called the kairos. And so we combined the Christianese combined with the historical context, and I created my own definition. And that kairos is an opportune time in which to accomplish a crucial action. And so, yes, it is a time, not the literal time like chronos, but it is a time. It is the time right now, or the time that's coming. That is the best time to do the thing that you want to do, that opportune time to accomplish your crucial action. And that's, again, into the heart of what I love to do is, what is your crucial action? Like, we may not even know what it is. We got to get clarity, vision, define what success looks like, and then help you make those steps forward.
Right. And so you're going to convert that, right? Like that's what you're looking for when, and you know, I'm a connector. So when I see through the lens of connection, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I want to really understand this person, understand who they are, what they're about, what their dreams are, what they want, what their design is, how they work, and then the extension of that is I'm going to connect you with other people based on that deep knowledge that I have of you and other people. And those connections are going to skyrocket because they're done lovingly with a deep understanding of both people. So that's how I see the world. You see a little differently, I think. You see, okay, here's a person. I want this person to be successful, very successful. That's what gives you, right? You get jazzed up, obviously, out of the box. Factory settings, you get jazzed up about that.
Yes.
Right? And so then it's a process of clarity. And I love what you've told me in the past about how you have this ability, if you have I think you even described this as your superpower.
Okay.
Ability to take big vision and convert it into steps. And I'm assuming that the steps equate with what you just said about what's your next crucial action, right? How does that all? Yeah, tell me how that all works together, and tell me if I'm missing anything.
No, I mean that's exactly right. And I don't want to. I don't like talking about myself like I'm all that coolest thing in a bag of chips or anything like that. But I think I just mix my analogies. I apologize. With that, everyone's got big ideas, and the unfortunate reality is that a lot of folks get stuck with their big idea and they don't have anywhere to go with it. They don't understand exactly what they should do next to achieve their goal in action. And it's like the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. And so most people don't even realize there's an elephant in the room, right? So we've got to define the elephant. We've got to put some boundaries on it. We have to get to what that looks like. And if you need help with that, obviously Good to Great is an amazing book, Setting a BHAG, Jim Collins, classic literature there. But you have to find that vision, and there's a million frameworks to do this. That one just is kind of one of the more proven ones, I guess you could say. And then from there, you got to work backwards to figure out what you can do literally today or every day. What small things? Because most folks don't realize all you need is 5 to 10 minutes a day, consistently applied, and you will start to work towards your goals. And that's actually how I launched this company in the first place. Relaunched it in the first place was from just working slowly daily at my goals to become an expert in these different things. I mean, even my degrees, like, that was done while having a full-time job and a wife. So it's like you have to understand what your goal is so you can work backwards. And then from there, we give you the next actionable steps you can take to accomplish those goals for yourself or your business.
Yeah, man, it's so cool. Like even what you just described sounds so simple, but in a way, it's the whole ball game. People who are effective in life are people who are able to apply sustained action over time, right? Like that's just the way the world is built in a lot of ways. I was talking to a friend of mine, a new friend of mine, who is a Substack author. So he releases serial fiction on Substack.
Hmm.
And his issue was he had all these books. He had books in his mind, but he couldn't write them. It was too daunting. It was too big to try to write a book. But what he found that he could do was that he could write a chapter a week and publish it on Substack.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 10 years later, this guy has consistently written a chapter a week and published it on Substack for the last 10 years.
Wow.
So many books written at this point. Actually, people have subscribed and are paying him not because he asked to be paid, but because they support and love what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And sustained action over time, right? Like that's
Right.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, for that, that's a wonderful example. Some folks they can't even commit to writing a chapter a day, but they can sit down and write. In fact, I think the most frequent advice I've read in writing books is just sit down and write. Pick a date and a time allotment and commit to writing whatever comes to mind. And through that, you'll be able to actually get to, the eventual goal of whether it be publishing a big book or publishing every day, whatever. But it's that consistent action over time. So that's a wonderful example, Johnny.
Yeah, man. And Simon, that's for anybody out there. Simon K. Jones. That's the name of the author on Substack.
Nice.
Really, really cool guy. Shout out Simon. I love your story, bro. Okay, Chad. I love your superpower, man. Now we're going to talk about who you help. Like, who are describe to me, like, so that me and the audience that's listening and viewing can get a sense for the kind of person that you're helping. Who are they? What are they experiencing? What industries are they in? Just give me a sense of who that person is that you love to help, that you have a heart for, and maybe even why you have a heart for that person.
So I would love to work with business-to-business providers. I do. Don't wrong. I do work with quite a few B2C clients. People who service direct consumers, but I find that my heart is frequently in the business-to-business business sector. It's a lot of businesses, but the reason is that like I said, I have a problem. My tutoring company I launched at 13. I've been entrepreneurial. The joke is that I was born 60 years old. So I really love working with folks who are entrepreneurial minded and that have something valuable to offer. And so with that, if you are someone who provides business-to-business services, and even if you don't, I'm happy to connect, but there are a lot of challenges in talking to other business owners, translating your technical know-how into actionable data or actionable insights or clear communication. And that process of taking what you have and translating it to value is tremendously entertaining, fun for me, because it's something that builds value for you. And it's fun to explore new ways to describe things, and I tend to learn a lot in the process. Beyond that, I find that a lot of business owners right now are very aware of things like AI and automation. They're learning that these tools exist, and they feel like they're falling behind. They feel like it's too overwhelming, or it's too much, or there's the other side of they don't trust it, and that's fair. With that, there's a couple things to note. One is AI automation are just going to continue to grow and develop, and companies will start to adopt it. This is no different than the development of cell phones and getting rid of faxes. It's no different than email and using websites for SEO. AI is a foundational piece of technology that's going to integrate into everything as time passes. Is the AI hype real? Yes. Will it see some kind of progress back down to norm? Yes. It will inevitably still move forward despite that. And so we have to, as business owners, be aware of this. And I believe that business owners today need to start understanding how they're going to integrate these technologies into their team. AI is going to become similar to Excel or Google when you're listing skills on a job application in the near future. So if that is the case, why wouldn't we start to learn about it? And that's where, if you're curious, confused, or just not sure where to start, that's typically where I like to start with folks, because there are at minimum 3 to 5 places that just regular ChatGPT can be integrated into your workflows in your business with your team that will save you a boatload of time and energy. Usually there's a lot more. Same thing with automations. I described my wife earlier, and just how her business has this process that's incredibly redundant. And her number one concern was that even though she uses the same copy and paste template email that takes place for every single inquiry, she customizes the first 2 lines of every email, and she wanted it to sound human. And
Yes.
so we were able to do that with AI and create
Yes.
a customized template email that checks her calendar, qualifies leads, and does a bunch of other stuff, and have that run for her automatically. And that's one example of the small opportunities to automate processes that buy back your team's time. We are a company that believes in elevating team members, not like replacing them if possible. So how do we use this technology to do that? And so if you're confused or curious, or even outraged at what this technology looks like, and why people are doing it poorly, because there is a lot of people doing it poorly, then I love to share just how we can do it, ways that you can improve that, things of that nature. If you're skeptical, then there is another avenue, which is positioning your brand as a handcrafted brand, if you will. There is a market for handcrafted leather. There is a market for a lot of markets where the high end is, human.
Yep.
This is not a new idea for us, so there is a positioning for that as well. Like I said, I don't. In the right markets, it makes a ton of sense, but for most companies, we really just need to learn and implement. So again, going back to the superpower you mentioned is, where do you want your company to go, and how can we use technology to help your team spend more time on the things they need to get there faster?
Yeah. It's so clear. It's so clear, Chad. So, are there any other places where because I know AI and automation, assistance or coaching, or even I think probably done for you, even like you can probably even put some of these things into place.
Yeah.
Is where you're focusing right now primarily with your business, Kairos, right? Kairos Talks. Are there other areas that gift that you have of converting big vision into the right next step, the series of steps, with an emphasis on making people holistically successful? Is there any other ways that you are doing that?
Yeah, we do a lot of work with marketing, and for the right folks, I have run businesses. I have helped scale businesses into seven figures on operations and automation and marketing side. So I've done some operational consulting in the past. It's not a primary thing we talk about, but I would say the other main thing we do is marketing. Where it comes to strategy, when it comes to how do you demonstrate your expertise, how do you connect with your audience, how do you show a presence that is out there and attracting the right folks. That's a lot of what we help with. We do everything from marketing consulting and strategy, where we help you as a kind of fractional CMO type of stuff, where we're building the plan and helping your team implement and providing feedback and really working on the full A to Z marketing picture for your brand. All the way down to, we actually ghostwrite for a lot of folks, where we are their social media presence. We do what we can to replicate the expertise that you have in short form or long form, depending on the email marketing, blogs, social media, graphic design, all that jazz. We take care of A to Z for a lot of companies, where we are just trying to help them spread their message. And frankly, we only work with companies that we believe in what they're doing. We believe they have a brand differentiator and they have ethical practices. And so it's really just, for a lot of business owners, they get stuck because they're busy running a business. That cannot get in the way of you sharing your business mission and passion with other folks, because if it does, you're just not going to grow. and that's not what the Lord has called us to. So you have, and I've run into the same thing as well. It's hard to run a business, make money, help people, and still continue to do the work that's required to build your professional image. But that allows you a greater platform to reach more folks, to increase your business, to hire more people, to increase the overall impact and good that your company is already doing. And without it, you're not going to grow, or you're not going to grow as fast as you could. I can't say you won't grow, because a lot of folks do grow without a social media presence, and that is awesome. But that's where we relieve that burden for folks, and make sure that we are creating more authority for a lot of companies. And specifically, I'd say we probably do the best job on individuals, what we call a key opinion leader strategy, building you into an expert that is well respected in your niche.
Very cool, man. And I love that intersection too between, because I can imagine that the marketing expertise and the automation expertise feed into and out of each other, right? So I suspect you're a very efficient marketer.
Yeah,
because of that.
There's also a very dangerous overlap, and I frequently caution against this. There are a lot of tools out there that will claim that they can automate your LinkedIn stuff, and they can, do X, Y, and Z for you. And what I've learned, because I do AI automation very, very frequently, is that there are a lot of places that AI just isn't hitting it. Or a lot of ways that you can use it poorly that have a negative consequence for you and your brand. So we actually, while we are efficient, we're efficient because we have a pretty large team that supports our clients. We do use AI because it's the only way to emulate expertise. But we do a ton of research that's manual. All of our copywriting is reviewed by 2 to 3 people minimum. Our graphic design is reviewed by 2 to 3 people minimum. We are constantly looking at manually doing this work, and AI expedites that process, but we are still making sure that a real person is behind it, posting it, and managing it. Because while AI is really, really powerful, and I would say from a social media standpoint, where AI would be best would be in receiving inbound leads or in doing some limited cold outreach in the very specific circumstances. Unfortunately, the uphill battle that we frequently have as a business is fighting people who do it poorly, or these automations that just spam folks and don't do a good job about it. I like to mess with those people quite a bit, but the reality is that there is a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. And right now, the majority of platforms that do automated AI posting and stuff are just not quite there. So we're still doing a lot of it manually, even if we are maybe more efficient than a lot of other teams.
What is the ethic that guides you in your decisions about AI? So can you tell us a little bit about how your framework of thinking about AI?
Yeah. So I don't think that AI is that different from other tech. So, for example, I had this question a couple months ago, and a gentleman was asking, well, kids are using it in cheating in school. You own a tutoring company, so, how does that play in it? And I was like, well, kids have been using stuff to cheat in school a lot longer than AI has been around. I mean, they bring notes in, they use their smartphones to Google stuff. When I was a kid, they had these, this is back when flip phones were the only option. And there was a service, you could text a number. I don't know what the number is anymore. And it would just give you back an answer, like all the time. And kids were using that to cheat, right? So when calculators came out, they didn't freak out. And, how does a calculator, impact the moral and ethical? And I get it. AI is more complicated than that. But the basic principle is the same, is that you got to do things the right way. AI can be used to do a lot of really amazing things. It really, really can. And there's also an unethical way to do it. And AI companies are trying to throttle that. They actually have a lot of safeguards in place. There's even some types of prompting that are not allowed if you try to be intentionally manipulative or anything of that nature. That'll actually shut your account down. But when we look at using AI, the question is it something that is a good thing to do or a bad thing to do? And your moral compass is really ultimately the determinant factor in that. If you're not doing a good job with it, then you should probably not use AI. If it's not working well, don't produce garbage material. If you are stealing other people's ideas and contents, Well, guess what? Stealing is bad. I learned that a long time ago. Um, these are not like it's not that different. Look, if you want to, and I do this. This is one of my favorite use cases. Man, I have this book literally right here. Steal Like an Artist. Okay, amazing book. It talks about how you can take people's ideas and make them your own. Now, you can use AI to make it your own. And AI companies have seceded that when you use their technology with your unique inputs, it is your intellectual property. At least that's the most recent update I've seen. So you can use this to help you create new ideas, create new content, inspire you. But if you do plagiarism, it's bad, right? If you lie or if it's incorrect information, it's bad. So when it comes to any of these types of things, we take extra careful consideration in making sure that we are kind, polite, courteous, ethically treating everything like we would normally. We're fact checking anything that comes through to make sure that we are doing accurate information portrayal. If we are working a technical subject matter, and we usually do this anyways, but we're always very good about making sure that we are getting approval from our clients on technical matters because we want to be truthful and ethical and all that. So it really isn't different from those different pieces. One of the questions in the ethic train is like, well, how do you justify replacing people with AI? Like, isn't that bad ethically? And the answer is no, I don't think so. When we had Google Excel first came out and they started launching formulas, there's probably a pretty reduced need of number crunchers because now you could run a formula that would do all the math for you, right? That just means that now we have an opportunity to level up the skill pool. We have an opportunity to give people the time to do more important critical work, to train them more. If you've got someone, look at McDonald's and these kiosks that are there now. It's time to go learn a different skill, right? You don't need to do the order taking necessarily. So you go flip burgers, go take window menu items, right? Go learn to be management. There's opportunities for that, and that's going to be happening either way. This isn't a moral issue, it's an opportunity for us to actually grow in our skill set and more important opportunities that are available to us. So again, sorry, it's a big rant because I get questions like this all the time, and it is relevant, but it's not as complicated as everyone thinks. The question is it good? Is it bad? And if you're unsure, what process do you do to go through morally questionable choices normally? Follow those same guidelines and you'll be just fine. Do not use automated AI tools to mislead people. Unethical. So, there's my TED Talk. Sorry.
I think you've got a very pragmatic view, and I think there is another dimension of the conversation, but I don't think that this is the place for it because it is there is a different conversation, which is how is technology in general forming us, and what are some of the consequences of the ways that it's forming us, right? Because there's a give and there's a take, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you're very pragmatic in saying like, yes, there's a give and there's a take, but there's a lot of give. There's a lot of great opportunity here, and if you're going to have reservations or concerns, let them be grounded in as much as possible in reality, grounded in truth.
I will touch on that real quick because there is data coming out now that AI is becoming adopted more frequently. Is that AI is actually hindering people's ability to think. It's actually, there's data showing that people who lean too much into AI are losing their cognitive function because they're being lazy. Yes. I kind of think the same answer it's the same answer. Not entirely, and it's more complex. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but there is work and creative obligations that folks have in pursuing their passion. And you can, and I've seen this with my team. It's one of the things I have to coach them on. You can completely delegate the thinking to AI, and that will ultimately harm you. Yes. But again, you could do that with a virtual assistant.
Yes.
Right? The ethical problem isn't necessarily different. It is another layer, but when we look at this, you still have an obligation to yourself, your personal development, your overall growth, your overall success, to take responsibility for what you're working on and continue to pursue that with zest. That is your obligation, And morally, I would say that's where we lean into. And that's why I still look at a large amount of our content that we produce, and I still inform our process, inform our coaching on our team, and I still think through a lot of stuff. I'm using AI to do the work, like the menial work, the restructuring, the drafting sometimes, but I'm teaching AI, I'm working with AI to make changes that I'm asking it to do, not that it's directing entirely from start to finish.
Yep, that makes sense, and that does get to angle, I think, more towards the bigger conversation.
Yeah.
But again, I think in the context of our conversation,
Yeah.
you take a very pragmatic view. You have a good sense for ways that it's good to use AI, both in the ethical sense and also in the practical sense. Right? There's some things that AI is not good at.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that AI does that just sound like AI, and it's
Right.
terrible.
Right.
And it makes you sound like a robot. And do you really want to? Is that good for your audience? For you to sound like a robot? Probably not. Is it good for
Right.
your audience to believe that you care so much about them that you do everything in AI and you
Right.
don't take any time to think about what you're putting out into the world?
Right.
Okay, if you're not going to put time, humanity into your craft to communicate with me, I'm not going to spend. I'm less motivated to spend any time with anything that you do because you didn't care enough about it to invest your time in it,
Right.
right? I think there's going to be just side comment. I think there is starting to be a backlash, like there's a taboo.
Mm-hmm.
In if I'm pretending to be me and it's AI, that's offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, it can be.
Anytime that people feel tricked, like I thought I was interacting with a human, but it turned out it was a robot.
Mm.
More and more, I'm already seeing like that creates a certain kind of outrage, and I don't think people even know why it makes them feel outraged. But
Yeah.
I think it's because people are longing for human connection. We're built for
Right.
human connection. If you trick me and take my human connection and
Right.
give me a robot, I'm gonna get mad.
Right. And that's where, again, what is the human elements that are inside of that? If is it a template email that you would just copy and paste and customize 2 lines of? Well, why?
For it, yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't you delegate that to an AI? You can do 2 things with that. If you're comfortable with it, you can just have it be you because it's your email, your template, and you've given it examples of what you sound like. And when they respond to that email, it goes to your inbox because you're handling it from there. Great. If you're not comfortable with that, well, then put a different name on it and give it a different email. That's not hard to do at all. So it really depends on your comfort level. But I agree with you is that most of the success that we see is when you bring AI assistants in, is they're different people. They're similar to employees and in how they function, so that you can be clear. And some are programmed to not admit their AI. Some don't care. It just kind of depends on your preferences.
Yep. Yeah, man. Yeah, there's so much more to uncover there. But I think like what AI has been a key discussion in this conversation that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's clear that you've thought this through further than a lot of people have, to the degree that it's a significant part of your business going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have something to say if there are people that need help in understanding how they uniquely leverage the technology in a way that fits them.
Yeah.
And fits their conscience, and also it works and gets the right result in the world.
I have a friend that comes to mind, and he was diabolically opposed to AI for a long time, and I was doing a ton of AI at that time, and he said, I just don't think it's going to sound like me. And one day we were talking, and he said, sometimes I spend 45 minutes on an email, 45 minutes working through just sending a follow-up email to someone. And I said, look, man, I understand your process. I know you well. Why don't you just cut your time in half and have AI write the initial draft? It's not going to sound like you because you don't use AI a lot. It's not going to be everything you want it to be because when you write an email, it takes you 20 minutes to write the first draft that you go beat up for 20 minutes before you send. So why don't you just beat up someone else's draft and then send that? And that'll cut your time in half, right away. And that's an example of where, again, it's a modification on the workflow But with where AI is today, he might even be pleasantly surprised if he gives a couple sample emails to that AI, just even as a prompt, a regular prompt. That AI may spit back something that's 85, 90% there. Worst case scenario, it cuts his time in half. Best case scenario, it removes it, makes it 5 minutes. And that's the kind of stuff where, a lot of folks ask me, what is your number one advice for folks? It's like, just go start using the thing. Try it out. If you don't like it, stop using it for that thing. But try it out. See what happens. I've had literally friends and clients who are like, man, AI is my best friend because that one piece of advice you gave me. And it's just go try it. And if you're open to it, then talk to someone like me who can help you guys figure out where the AI belongs in your company, in your business, in your workflow, because there's so many opportunities. One of the limitations, and I apologize, mini rant here, but one of the opportunities in automation that's been a limitation in years previous is that if we could pass data through an automation, we had to plan for every single eventuality. In fact, we have a fallback condition for it. We've got if A, then B, if B, then C, if C, then D. And if you forget a condition, then it stops working. Or if there's a variance in the variables, like it doesn't match up perfectly, then the system doesn't know how to handle it. And what AI has allowed us to do with automations is to create human-like decision-making capabilities into workflows for automation. So a great example is we have a client we're working with that, and this is a very common automation, is taking sales calls and it's evaluating the sales call to see if they're qualified or unqualified. So if they're unqualified, meaning they're not interested, it's going to send them an email that says, hey, thank you much for your time. If you know someone interested, here's my information. If you change your mind, I'd love to talk in the future. If they're qualified, it goes to another set of decisions. Another AI makes the next decision, which is where are they? Are they just kind of in the game planning phase? Are they interested, but they're not the person who can make the decision? Or are they ready to go? And it looks at the transcript and decides which of those three buckets to go down, and then basically drafts the next follow-up series based on that, all the way through building a contract, creating an invoice if they're most interested, pulling out details of their vision if they're least interested. And that's the kind of thing where in the past, again, if you didn't have templates and very specific protocols or like a format that was the same every time, you couldn't build this automation. It just wouldn't exist. Right. Now we've got miniature automation or mini decision-making matrices that AI, being trained on data, has the capability to get to a very high degree of accuracy. And that's where this new world is opening up, because these AI agents, because that's what they are equipped with tools to help them make choices that align with what you're trying to accomplish. And building those miniature decisions is a lot of what we come down and help out folks with.
This is so good, Chad. Are you a make.com or a Zapier guy?
I'm a Make guy. I have everything. I use Zapier. I call it Zapier because I like Zap as their term. But I one of our big projects right now is in Zapier. It's fine. They're kind of, I call them Microsoft and Apple. So Make is more Microsofty. You can kind of do whatever you want so long as you can make it work. Zapier is very Apple. Like they're like, this doesn't work. Well, you should probably find someone else to do it because we don't do it yet. So that's very much the attitude difference. And so Zapier has a lot more integrations. If you are starting on your own, I highly recommend Zapier to get started. It's where I started. But as I've really grown, there's just a lot of functionality that's missing, and I can build my own applications in Make. There's also another one called Active Pieces, which is really fun. Again, more complex. I would argue it's probably more complex than Make, or N8N, which is also more complex than Make. So we've got it all. For clients, depending on the tools that you're using and the integrations that are available, frequently we'll just build it where you need it for your company, or if we're hosting it, we usually try to do it in Make. I don't think I'm going to be able to avoid building some stuff in Zapier, so we're going to likely have to pivot to that as well. So just depends.
It's good, man. This is all really helpful. And I think for me, there's something that you revealed in this conversation that's probably common sense to you. And it'll sound overly simple, but really, if there's any work that I'm doing that's already templatized in some way, there should be an automation or an AI, right? Like that is the first candidate for automation or AI work to be done.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
because,
to
yeah,
simplify this to your example, one of the pieces of our process for me is that when we have me and then we also have some other reviewers of our content. But what ended up happening is I would create a content calendar for a client of ours, and I would say, okay, this person, this company, and we put up. People usually have one platform they're specialized in, so it's either LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or some combination. The profiles usually post everywhere. So I found that I was every time I chose this profile, that I was also manually populating all the platforms in the drop down selectors that we needed. Super simple. Takes me 10, 15 seconds. I realized on like number 15 that I was doing the same work over and over and over and over and over again. It only took 15 seconds, but it was kind of annoying. So it took me 60 seconds. I built an automation that automatically does that for me. Like it just takes care of it. And all I have to do is click who it is and it auto populates. And it's not even AI, it's just an automation. And there's things like that are available in most tools and softwares that we don't realize. That, again, not a big deal. It's only going to save me 6 or 7 hours a year. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot daily. It's 10 to 15 seconds per task, but that's another day of work I get back because I took 60 seconds to figure out how to automate this thing. And that's where, to your point, automation can be incredibly simple. It's just most folks don't know what they don't know, and so we can't even begin to picture what that looks like.
well, and we have to control, like there's another hidden value to that automation that you even just described, which is you've avoided a context switch in your
Mm-hmm.
brain, right? So
Right.
context switching is
Switching
expensive,
costs. Yep.
right? And it costs you, right? Because there's only so much attention that you have. Attention is
Right.
actually a finite and limited resource. And
Right.
so the more that you can um, reduce the number of choices that you have to make,
Right.
you know, then you're conserving brain energy for, conserving attention for other decisions that you have to make. And we live in a world where we have to manage that because in a given day, how many decisions are required of us?
Right.
So many, too
Right.
many. Um, and I don't say this to say that we shouldn't be that we shouldn't be intentional in deciding. I'm saying that to say
Right.
if there are low level things that really don't require a decision or shouldn't require a decision. Um,
Well, if I could add one qualifier to that, if there are decisions that are already made and you making that decision does not add any value to the equation,
Correct.
then why are you making that decision? And I just get really amped up about this because your time is the only resource that you cannot get back. So why are you spending any time making choices that do not benefit you at all? Like it doesn't benefit you. So stop doing it. And it's sorry.
Chad, there it is.
There's my soapbox. Yep, there we
The
go.
soapbox. Well, we hit the place of your passion, right? And so
Right.
time, you only have so much time. You only have so much attention. That goes back to your company name, Kairos, right? Which has to do with doing the right things at the right time. Um, so, like, I can tell, man, you're just soaked in your mission. You're soaked in your calling. And it's cool to see, man. It's cool to see you be like, step up to the mic. I'm going to get
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
soapbox. Well, yeah, do that because that's the stuff um, I have so many more questions for you, so we're probably going to have to talk another time. But the topic is very interesting, very compelling. I think there are a lot of people and specifically even believers trying to understand our relationship with AI,
Mm. Yeah.
And there are quite a few different places we can land morally and ethically and pragmatically with it. But I love your perspective, and I appreciate your perspective on it. I think it's going to be helpful to people. So thank you, Chad.
Thanks, Johnny. I appreciate the time today. It's been really great to connect with you. It's fun having these conversations, and the challenge with this stuff is that you get so technical. You look at time savings and all these different things, but the reality is it goes back into that heart of like you were put here for a reason. So let's spend more time on that reason and less time on the stuff that you being involved in adds less value, and figure out what we can help take off your plate.
It makes so much sense, man, because you are wired and called and geared to move people towards success and towards their dreams and towards the clarity that leads them to be able to then towards the right next step and not wasting time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just so baked into who you are, and it shows in the way that you talk and in what you've chosen as a vocation. So I just appreciate you, honor you. Thank you for joining us today. And everybody, thank you for staying with us, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy,
Awesome.
everybody.